Today on my show, I wanted to introduce you to someone who lost his entire family in the 1985 Kanishka bombing. Sanjay Lazar is with me. He has spent his entire life without his family because they were all lost. His parents, his sister, they were all lost in that terrorist attack. There has been a complete whitewashing of the people responsible for it. A completely laughable sense of responsibility has been taken by Canada, and no justice has been served for the 329 people who died on board that aircraft, including 268 Canadian citizens and the parents and sister of the man you see on your screen, Sanjay Lazar. Sanjay, a privilege to have you with us here on India Today. Thank you for taking the time out. I know you've been looking very closely, Sanjay, at everything that's been unfolding over the last 6 days. What are your thoughts about what Trudeau did 6 days ago in blaming India for an extraterritorial killing? I want to get that answer from you first before I go into Kanishka. Sanjay.
I've been looking for it for 38 years, actually. But yes, Shiv, thank you for having me on your show. It galls me to know that, Canada, after sitting on the killers of 331, actually, you're forgetting the 2 in Tokyo who died with the same bomb. 331 people, they protected them for 38 long years and fostered a complete anti-India force that wants to secede from India within their boundaries, is now talking about the death of a terrorist on their own soil, possibly killed by their own people. And it's shocking. I mean, I heard your run-up to the show, and, it was not, the tapes were not erased by mistake or lost. They were wiped clean.
Yes.
The evidence was all there. They test-fired the bomb 2 weeks before the actual bomb. So let's understand that this is a state that has looked the other way. And they cannot now point fingers at India 38 years later and say, this happened and this guy is our citizen. Because it was all their citizens who killed our people. My family. I know so many other families. I know so many other victims' families, who have bonded with me over these years. So that is a shocker for me. It's an absolute shocker.
Sanjay, I want you to describe, and 38 years is a long time, but I can imagine that, some things never really heal. But I still want us to go back and to take our viewers back to 1985 to tell us, what happened after that. Did you at that point of time, I'm sure you must have had some hope with such a gargantuan attack and a tragedy and so much loss of life. A part of you must have felt sure that justice would be served.
Well, Chip, I left from Bombay to London and then to Cork to try and find, at that time as a young kid, you still have hope. You believe in dreams. You think, the aircraft is floating. Maybe you'll find people, they'll swim. And when you reach there, you realize the futility of the situation, and then you start looking at everything around. The thought of justice doesn't come up until you've started mourning. You come back, you bury your dead, and then you look. We always hoped that there would be justice. I always dreamt that there would be, somebody who would answer for these crimes. It was a tragedy to learn, for years, there was almost little or no investigation that came forth. And when the criminal investigation did come forth, we were invited maybe 5-6 years later to go to Vancouver for the trial. I literally sat 10-15 feet away from the killers in a bulletproof glass cage. And I've seen them. And they grinned, and they all knew that nobody would come forward. They had silenced and killed witnesses during that trial, before the trial. And there was just no justice. Even the evidence that was left on the table after the tapes were erased and the witnesses were removed was enough to convict in any normal country. They were found innocent of 331 lives, deaths, killings.
You've seen this up close. You've seen the anatomy of how a country has protected these killers for 4 decades now. an entire generation of Indians is now waking up to this, to this side of Canada. Most people in India, I dare say, regard Canada with, with a kind of middling positive light. Nobody really has ever thought of this side of Canada, of being a safe haven for terrorists, an active colluder with these groups to try and completely cover up and expunge all evidence of one of the worst terror attacks in the entire world's history, not just Canadian history, but world history. Can you explain, tell us a little bit about that journey, how you actually saw this being unfolded? The Vancouver bomb tests, these tapes being erased, etc.
Shiva, a lot of this didn't come out till after they were found innocent. Let me be clear. We didn't know. This was so secret. All the victims got together, and there is an organization that they've created in Canada called AIVFA, and it's a victims organization. And it's, we put pressure on politicians in Canada and India. And they finally, after 3 criminal trials and a couple of, sham inquiries, they got the retired Supreme Court judge of Canada, Justice John Major, to set up a commission.
Yes.
And that happened 15 years ago, 15 or 16 years ago. So that's almost 20 years after the bombing. And it's only when all that came out and everybody had to testify in an open hearing that we realized that Canada was tracking this guy from December of 1984. That's 6 months before the bombing.
Yeah.
They had watched him come in. He had watched him assemble a team. They had watched him get the tuners, the Sanyo, tuners to place the bombs in. They had got the raw material. They watched him do everything. They watched him go into the woods in Duncan, in Vancouver Island, and test fire the bomb. There was a secret operative there. So it's not that they didn't know. They had a system of erasing. Well, they used to just erase tapes when they found something. So they knew. Let me also tell you, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was visiting US on a state visit just before. Even the Secret Service visited Parmar and Rayat. They, with the CSIS, they checked them out just to see nothing would happen on American soil. So it's not that, North American intelligence forces were not aware to the threat. The threat perception existed. There were documented threat perceptions. And they just turned their eye to it, blind eye. It's the politics of vote banks. I can't say anything else. I mean, today's Prime Minister is surviving because of, a party or 2 parties that support him, which support the same fringe, radical fringe groups that run that country literally today. If you go to Western Canada,
yes,
you know that it's run by them. It's not run by not run by the Prime Minister.
So Sanjay, you're saying that even the deaths of 268 Canadians among the total number that perished in this disaster, was nothing in front of vote bank political compulsions, and that it wasn't enough to shake Canada and to change its policy of accommodation for these people, these extremists. You're saying that?
I'm saying that, yes, absolutely. I'm saying that with, the Kanishka bombing in the rearview mirror, Canada should have, and after John Major's commission, Canada should have changed its politics internally.
Yeah.
You cannot see, I mean, it's like, just because somebody from the Al-Qaeda starts becoming an honest politician, doesn't make the Al-Qaeda honest or doesn't make them a political party. You cannot, I mean, Leopard doesn't change its spots. And their country should have realized that these are groups that you should not be permitting to preach this kind of stuff. They're, and let me be clear on this. It's a very small, minuscule percentage. The Sikhs are wonderful. They are peace-loving.
Absolutely.
Lovely race. And let's not paint everybody with the same brush. There's a very small, minuscule percentage.
Correct.
And these are the guys who are going about spreading hate, putting diplomats' pictures on gurdwaras where it shouldn't be. That's a place of prayer and worship. I go to a gurdwara. I've gone to the Golden Temple so many times. It's not where you radicalize religion. And you're allowing few guys like this to turn a country that has strong democratic principles into wasteland. There's absolutely no difference. between what Al Qaeda was doing before 9/11 in the desert of
Correct.
Afghanistan, then these guys are doing. So, I mean, people must wake up. Canadians must wake up, and who are they talking about? Who are they accusing India of having killed? Let's know, mistaken identities happen here. I'm not condoning any extrajudicial killings. I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm saying, I'm a peace-loving person. Okay, I've seen how my entire family got destroyed. But let's understand, this is a guy who was preaching in places, in open, places of worship, lionizing the killers of Kanishka.
And the Canadians were calling it freedom of speech, Sanjay. The Canadians were calling it freedom of speech.
There is a limit. Freedom of speech does not mean you change and twist history. Freedom of speech means you speak what you want, but you don't make somebody who's, killed 331 people into a hero. He's not a hero.